Before we start talking about the rally on Friday, we'll quickly get your reaction to news that broke recently about a confidential memo that has been uncovered through a discovery process. Tell us a little bit about this memo that emerged and what it tells us about the process.
Well, we were as much surprised, I think, as everybody to find out that Energy Transfer Partners, the company building the pipeline, was tasked to write this memo describing how, somehow through their process, that the pipeline would have less of an impact on a minority or a non-white population or a low-income population placed just north of the reservation than it would have north of Bismarck, the capital city of North Dakota. I don't know how they reached that process. It's being called, it's being said that they gerrymandered a pipeline, but if you read through it a little bit, you can see that they consider everything within a half-mile radius in their analysis. And in this case, at the Standing Rock Reservation, they placed this pipeline 1/20th of a mile north of that half-mile radius. So they avoided that by 1/20th of a mile. They were able to exclude the entire population of Cannonball and the residential areas of that.
So they draw a circle and say, well, there's nobody in here, so everything's fine. Is that basically what they're doing?
That's exactly what they're doing, and they were able to. I mean, they gerrymandered the process to be able to reach these conclusions. So, the further we look into this, I think the more it's going to be exposed that this pipeline, which is inherently dangerous in the first place, was placed in a manner so as to further subjugate and disrespect and dehumanize Native nations.
And so that's one thing for a pipeline company to do. Pipeline companies are going to do what they're going to do. But my understanding is that this memo was then used by the government rather than the government doing their own research.
It certainly appears that way, and that's completely surprising that, the Army Corps of Engineers, a federal agency that owes a trust responsibility to Native nations, would rely on the potential perpetrator and violator of environmental justice and of a trust responsibility that the Army Corps has a duty to uphold.
And so you're here in Washington. Have you talked to any lawmakers, or are you here primarily for protest on Friday at the White House?
Yes, I haven't talked to lawmakers personally, but I'm definitely here to support the Native nations and the thousands of people who are congregating in the Capitol Hill area near Washington Monument for the teepee village, and we're here to say to the world that the fight is not over, that the front line is definitely going to shift into different areas, different forms. The legal fight is just as important as the political fight, and both rely on the presence of the frontline fight.
So I know you have to go soon, but can you bring people up to speed on where that legal fight is at the moment?
Yes, so there are three Native nations that have active legal fights. The Standing Rock Nation and the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe, their fights are sort of, we've lost there for the moment, but for the appeal process. And the Oglala Lakota Nation, it currently has a suit that is alive based on the inadequacy of the Trump administration, or the arbitrary and capricious manner that they acted in when they allowed the drilling underneath the river. Do they have the legal right to completely do away with the environmental impact statement process that was started under the Obama administration? That's the question that has to be answered still.
And talk a little bit more about what you were saying earlier, the interplay between politics and the legal system. Do you believe that the legal victories that you had in 2016, that were ultimately reversed, but that you had in 2016, would have happened without the political pressure that was being brought to bear by protesters?
Yes, when we talk about those three fronts, the political front, the legal front, and the frontline arena, we don't get anywhere legally or politically unless we're able to bring to bear real life on the ground pressure. And that's what the Dakota Access Pipeline movement represented, with about 800 people being arrested, several, including myself, being charged with felonies, facing some serious prison time, with the systematic brutalities, police brutalities, corporate-sponsored brutalities, and violations of not only Native Nations treaty rights, but of civil rights, of constitutional rights to peaceably assemble, to speak freely, to be free from illegal searches, seizures, surveillance. A lot of rights violations happened out there, and we need to make sure, in the court of public opinion at least, that Morton County and those that perpetrated that violence under the color of state law for the benefit of a private corporation are held accountable.
Chase Iron Eyes, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people go to find out more?
You can go to lakotalaw.org, standwithstandingrock.net, and those are two very good sources to go for further information.